Thank you for joining us for another PCN Call-In program. I'm Francine Cesari, and as always, it's a pleasure to have you join us. Pennsylvania doctors staged a statewide walkout today in protest of rising medical malpractice insurance costs. Today, we'll speak from both the trial lawyer side as well as the physician side and look at the current medical malpractice situation in Pennsylvania. My guests this evening are Cliff Rieders. He is the past president of the PA Trial Lawyers Association. He is also a legislative appointee of the Patient Safety Authority. And seated beside him, Dr. Brian Cohn. He is an OBGYN with Physicians for Women's Health. Mr. Rieders, I'd like to bring you in on the conversation a little bit. As past president of PA Trial Lawyers Association, what is your opinion of caps on punitive damages?
Well, there are caps on punitive damages, and they were capped in 1995. What the doctor did not mention is there have been at least 11 very substantive changes to the law in Pennsylvania since 1995. We had what I call MedMal 1 in 1995, and that had a tremendous number of changes, including virtually eliminating the ability to bring an informed consent case. Then in 2002, when I was president of the trial lawyers, we negotiated Act 13, which has also had a vast change on the tort laws in Pennsylvania. We also created the first Patient Safety Authority, of which I am one of only 2 lawyer members, and we have several Supreme Court rules. I signed off on the letter that went to the Supreme Court asking for the court to institute a rule to prevent frivolous lawsuits. I signed that letter. We have been behind efforts to change the tort system, the legal system, to a tremendous degree. Unfortunately, the 2 things that have not been changed are patient safety and the insurance industry. Now, we have created the Patient Safety Authority, which is now beginning to do its job. In fact, this week and the next couple of weeks, we'll be letting a contract in order to have a company collect data about adverse events and serious events and to try to really do something about this rising tide of medical errors. But the one industry that's never been touched is the insurance industry. And as you may know, Pennsylvania, without question, has the most corrupt insurance industry in the country. Our own insurance commissioner, who was just reappointed, Diane Koken, has lawsuits pending against the FICO, which is the hospital group, and against other insurance companies that, because of corruption and self-dealing and other accusations which she has made as insurance commissioner, have collapsed, not because of claims payouts. We also know, as a result of all this legislative activity dealing with the tort system, with the legal system, that Pennsylvania's actually had an increase in doctors every single year. The doctors leaving the state argument is probably the biggest fiction that I have seen as the empiricist of the Pennsylvania trial lawyers and sitting on the Patient Safety Authority. In fact, according to the Licensure Board, which is the only organization you can rely upon, or the Medical Catastrophe Fund, they're the only organizations that really keep track on doctors. We've had an increase every single year in the number of doctors in Pennsylvania for the 10 years that records have been kept and are available. Now, having said all of that, that doesn't mean that the doctors should pay more for medical malpractice insurance coverage, even though we know there's been a large decline in the number of cases and in the payouts. Let me give you an example from your own county, Dr. Cumberland County. You're in Lemoyne, Cumberland County, right? In Cumberland County, between 01 and 02, there was a 40% reduction in the payouts on medical claims from the Catastrophe Loss Fund. What I'd like to know is, why is your premium going up? Now, I think I know the answer to that because I've been around the insurance business my whole life. The reason is that insurance companies are trying to make up for the fact that interest rates have fallen so dramatically. And the insurance companies are making it up off the backs of the doctors. And of course, it's easy enough to blame it on the lawyers. But when you look at county after county, and I use Cumberland as an example because the doctor's from Cumberland County, and when you see how precipitously the payouts have fallen, you got to scratch your head and say, what's going on here? The frustration.
That's not true.
Let me finish. I let you spoke, so let me finish. Okay. What distresses me is that we've been trying to talk to the doctors about these problems, to work on the reimbursement, to increase the reimbursement for the doctors. I wrote a bill that would have increased reimbursements for physicians. They weren't interested. And we've been trying to work with the physicians on insurance reform, and at no point have they been willing to work with us and sit down and talk these matters over. So, the solution to the problem you're talking about, which is to bring premiums down, which should happen, is not to say to the politicians, gee, you've done 10 or 11 or 12 different changes to the legal system, make another 2 or 3 or another 5, but to look at those elements that have not been looked at. The last point I want to make with respect to California is after California passed caps on damages, California's increases, 57% a year, were far in excess of the increases of any other state. What stopped the rising rates in California was insurance reform, and that's Proposition 103. And that has been, if not introduced, at least written in Pennsylvania. That stopped the increase in insurance premiums in California, not caps. And the best studies on caps, and the best one I've seen, it was done by Professor Bott at Pace University, show that when you have caps, people litigate more. Why? Because there's no incentive to settle. If the most catastrophic, the most horrendous errors are subject to a cap, then there's never going to be an incentive to settle. And those cases wind up going to trial, and transaction costs actually increase. So caps is counterproductive. The way to bring down premiums, and we do want to bring down the premiums, is to regulate the insurance industry properly and to get the Patient Safety Authority functioning to do the job that it's created to do, and which is run by a majority of doctors and health care professionals. Wonderful people, I might add. I've become friends with a number of them. That's the way to solve the problem.